My wife says she's gonna kill me if I die. I think we'll live.
What follows is an amateur documentary on what was supposed to be a 7-day backpacking trip along the John Muir Trail in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. Through a love of the outdoors, the desire to get healthier, mere curiosity, and a healthy dose of peer pressure, I signed on to accompany Will, Ben, and Jason on a permit to hike the John Muir Trail alongside Glenn, Tammy, and a few other folk. Ben had generously taken care of all the arrangements, reservations, and logistics. All we had to do was drive.
All right, here we go. We're packing up.
The drive there was uneventful, but allowed us to watch the changing landscape from city to vast, empty desert, small towns, and finally, tree-filled alpine slopes, our home for the next week. Will and I met up with Ben, Jason, Scott, and Taryn. Our first real stop was to pick up some local brew and give us a chance to relax and chat on our first night together. We made camp on BLM land outside of Mammoth. This was my first chance to get familiar with the tent that Will generously loaned me. It gave me a chance to try out some of my other equipment for the first time as well.
I jumped right into it. Used the camping bidet for the first time. I took a compass bearing on my way out here, and I followed a compass bearing of exactly 250.
My jet boil made the first meal of the trip. And after some stargazing, we turned in.
All right, well, made it through the first night. Just pretty comfortable, as a matter of fact. It's almost as comfy as my bed at home. I'm going to do a test hike today, a little day hike, just to help us acclimate to the altitude.
After packing up and making breakfast, we assembled a day pack and decided to follow Ben out of Mammoth proper and up a trail 3 miles in to Barney Lake and 3 miles back. Our first real hike.
Day hike.
The first part of the hike didn't disappoint. Gradual slopes gave way to stairs and switchbacks as we ascended. Will stayed behind to run errands in town, and Scott and Taryn wanted to take it slow, so we were a group of 3 before we reached Arrowhead Lake. This trail provided me ample opportunity to get my hiking legs, as well as practice some of my documentary filming skills. Hopefully you'll notice those improve as the days go by. My reward here was my first gorgeous, sweeping vistas of the nature that would await us in the coming days. Following a stream up to its source, we arrived at Skeleton Lake, a vastly peaceful body of snowmelt and rain that fills the craggy quartz cavity of an ancient volcano. Our final destination for the day lay ahead, so we set off on through increasingly rocky terrain. Tree growth that became more stunted as we approached 10,000 feet, under the protective cover of great silver clouds. We followed the trail along an old log across a stream that spills into the inappropriately named Red Lake, where we enjoyed a hard-earned lunch. It is easy here to disengage from the world and its deadlines and demands, to live in the moment aware of the sounds and sights around you, and simply to soak in the solitude that surrounds you. The trail descending into town seemed to take on a different feel as we began to observe more keenly our surroundings, thinking less of where we needed to reach or where we next had to go. We would see a great many more wonders of nature in the days to come, but this afternoon, it was time to take one last sip of civilization.
This is quite the view for dinner. All right, it's 5 in the morning, and we're heading out to the trailhead at 6. And it occurs to me I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, so hopefully this works out.
The time had arrived where we would say goodbye to the known, to the comfortable, to the predictably safe for a full 7 days.
Got the packs. Last time I'll be seeing the car for a while. We'll see how this goes. That's too steep. I give up.
So Taryn, we're gonna go up and over that.
So this is it, eh? Our first step on trail. All right, 2.8 miles down. Not too many bugs. It's still early, so the sun's not hot. I'm carrying too much water. I'm learning. It's been good. All right, here it is, the JMT. We actually made it.
A few miles into the backcountry, we eventually take our first steps onto the legendary John Muir Trail, a 213.7 mile footpath, sometimes called America's most famous trail, with origins as a Paiute trade route long before John Muir was even born. The trail never drops below 7,000 feet and crosses 6 passes at over 11,000 feet. An astounding 90 to 96% of JMT hikers travel from north to south, and today that includes us. But there are nevertheless fairly consistent smatterings of northbound hikers, some more talkative than others.
Howdy.
The beautiful sights along this stretch kept us distracted, but nevertheless, we logged 7 miles before we stopped for lunch.
Oh, welcome to Deer Creek. This is lunch.
And with my 40 to 45 pound pack on my back, I was pretty tired by the time we stopped to eat. Despite the heavy weight of 3 liters of water on my back, we were facing 5 miles ahead with no water sources, so I made sure to take advantage of Deer Creek to fill up with fresh, cold, filtered water. All too soon, it was time to sling that pack onto our backs once again and head out. This time up, up, and up. On our way to the Duck River. The footage that you see here is the last that I shot for the remainder of this leg. The witty banter of the last 5 hours tapered off into just heavy panting and relentless footfalls. The trail became long and at times punishing. During the steepest ascent, I began to feel discomfort in my chest, and my pulse was nearly 180 beats per minute, very close to the ceiling for a man of my age and fitness level. That gave me ample cause to stop and think about just what it was I was doing out here. Upon our eventual arrival at our campsite, I was positively exhausted. I put on my best face and shot this footage while the experts figured out the best place to set up camp. I knew that once I took this pack off, I would not be picking it back up again this day.
This is where we're spending the night, just below Duck Lake. It was almost 13 miles, really close to a half marathon basically. The last mile, I had to really dig deep to find the fun. That's definitely true of me right now. I'm spent. I'm ready.
The altitude and the physical exhaustion manifested in a circus of bad decisions on my part. I set up my tent in the wrong order on a rock where I couldn't stake down in a windy channel, a recipe for failure. I let my drinking tube bathe in unfiltered water while pumping clean water into my bladder, totally negating the point of using a filter in the first place. But I had my friends with me. They guided me to the best campsite, close enough to water, far enough off trail. They provided good company and good counsel, reminding me to take time to stretch and to thank my body for the hard work that it put in. I snuck in a quick solo game of cribbage in my tent, and we turned in for the night without fanfare. If the trail on the previous day proved punishing, today's trail promised to be doubly so. Scott and Taryn, realizing this truth, had decided long ago to part ways with the group here, to take a challenging but doable climb up to Duck Lake, so we said our goodbyes here. Ahead of us lay 11 miles of ascent with a precipitous drop into Tully Hole.
I'd say once you were in Tully Hole, you've committed.
While the rest of the group will continue south for 8 more days, Will and my plans had us returning in just 2 more days back this very same route. The thought of having to eventually ascend from Tully Hole was positively soul-crushing. Our return trip from VVR would be a steady 2-day climb of over 3,000 feet, with a heavy resupplied pack, racing against the clock to arrive at a suitable place to camp, in time to find an open spot during the most popular time of the year. We worked the math over and over in our heads. It was achievable. It would be difficult, but we could pull it off. There was just one nagging problem. We had come here to see nature, to taste the fresh water, to cast a line into deep lakes, to recline at camp, to listen to the wolves howl and gaze at the stars. And the route ahead afforded precious little time and spare energy for doing any of that. As much as we also came out here to strengthen the bonds that we formed with our friends, we made the difficult and frankly embarrassing call to turn around mid-trail, to cut our losses thus far, and to take a slower-paced route up to Pika Lake. We said our goodbyes to Ben and Jason.
Tell Glenn this is all his fault.
Okay. I'll keep reminding him.
Yeah.
Will is far more capable and experienced an outdoorsman than I, and I had to own the decision to turn around. That guilt compounded with the guilt of leaving Ben behind, who had already done so much work to prepare us. But Will was very supportive, continually pointing out the reasons that we turned around and made this decision. Despite the heavy pack on my back, there was, after a fashion, a certain weight lifted from my shoulders, knowing that we were in control over our destiny, our schedule, and how we spend the hours during the day. Nearly instantly, our day slowed down, and we began to appreciate the crazy spiral patterns evident in rotting logs, the rough-hewn landscapes, sweeping vistas. Backtracking our steps downhill, we eventually began the uphill climb towards Duck Lake, our 10-person crew now down to just 2. We eventually came upon the foot of Duck Lake, easily the largest and most majestic of the lakes that we would encounter on this trip. This end of Duck Lake is also the birthplace of Duck River, which served as our water source at camp last night, and which we would have to cross in order to continue our journey. The trail beyond was a steady climb, but not difficult or steep, and it left me with the perfect feeling of accomplishment without any punishment. The beautiful turquoise and deep blue hues of Duck Lake followed us just off trail as we climbed in the sun, and I imagined immersing myself in its cool, refreshing waters. I made good use of my sun umbrella as we climbed above the tree line. Eventually, our destination, the smaller Pika Lake, was visible just beyond the wide waters of Duck Lake. We just had to descend a few hundred feet and make our way around the edge of Duck. It was often a difficult decision to put my camera away, knowing that it would only be minutes until another picturesque panorama presented itself. The keen observers along this trail would also be rewarded with some unusual discoveries along the way.
What the heck is it? Well, G-Son, I found some really good real estate here. What do you think? It's quiet, your neighbors are pretty far, you know? It's close to the lake.
That's super foresty. I think we're gonna. That's basically wet beach zone.
We rounded the corner to views of Pika Lake, which would serve as our home for the next day, and we were greeted with a bit of a surprise.
Wait a minute.
Scott and Taryn had made their way to the very part of Pika Lake that Will and I were exploring. Furthermore, they had arrived early enough to claim the absolute best campsite for miles around. There were only 2 other couples at Pika during our stay, but they made their jealousy known.
It's a pretty good site for your tent. Wake up in the morning and see this. Looking forward to it.
We were close to water, far enough from the trail, and had spectacular views in nearly every direction. Scott and Taryn would become our trail buddies for the remainder of the trip. My humor, which was missing by the end of the day yesterday, had definitely returned.
I'm saving this one. I had to turn the camera on for it. We are at Lake Pika, and I'm eating food This will be my very first Pikachu. Thank you.
Come on, man. I said no more dad jokes.
Having hiked only 7 miles that day, we reached camp early, feeling the work that our bodies put in, but with plenty of energy left to enjoy our surroundings. And enjoy them we did.
Well, I smell pretty bad. And I know this place is full of mosquitoes and the water is snow melt. So it's not exactly warm. I'm about to do something stupid. Hold my beer. 3, 2, 1.
This was without a doubt my favorite moment of the trip. At this time, there was not a single other human being visible to me, and the refreshing feeling of the cold water on my sweaty body, mixed with adrenaline, was the perfect cocktail for euphoria.
Oh, my own private pool. Not too bad once you're in.
Fishing occupied the majority of our afternoon. Even without a successful catch, the vistas awaiting us around every bend of the shoreline was enough to keep us consistently in awe.
Seriously.
Sunset was breathtakingly gorgeous. I slept without my rain fly up, with a full view of the crescent moon and the night sky, satellites, and the Milky Way above me. I fell asleep with a smile on my face.
Good night.
I woke up to excited whispers, warranted, as it turns out. Taryn, our youngest hiker at 12 years, had caught himself a fish big enough to provide breakfast for the 4 of us. I assisted in cleaning and cooking the fish, and we all shared a fresh mountain meal.
There's breakfast right there.
So now we know a perfect time to go.
Supplemented, of course, with coffee and Pop-Tarts.
Coffee and Pop-Tarts. Random thoughts while I'm packing up for the morning. 1, the mosquitoes here have been absurdly well behaved. I mean, there's huge clouds of them, but not a single bite. Number 2, really glad I brought another pair of trail socks. I brought too much pasta. I am sick of eating noodles. You get better at putting things away day by day, and today it is the smallest it's ever been. So I can tell I'm getting better. I'm getting better at setting up the tent, better at tearing it down. Just a lot of learning experiences, and super thumbs up all the way. It's been really fun so far.
We left the same way that we came in, past Duck Lake, but the trail takes on a different character when traveling in the other direction, and at a different time of day. So we were keen on soaking in the sights, and we couldn't help ourselves but to try for a bit of sport before heading up Duck Pass. By 10 a.m., we left familiar ground behind and crested the pass. It offered spectacular, expansive views of Mammoth Mountain and the valley below it. I felt good. I felt fortunate that I wasn't coming up these scree-covered switchbacks. Midway down the mountain, we could see the backside of Barney Lake, where I had enjoyed lunch several days prior. I was about to come full circle in my adventures. Once again, we arrived early and had an A-plus selection of places to camp. Our choice offered unparalleled views in every direction, and sat close, but not too close, to both the trail and to a stream filled with fresh water. Despite it being the windiest spot that we had yet encountered, my setup skills had leveled up, and putting up the tent offered no challenges.
And the view outside the tent there, I mean, it's $1 million view. That's like, yeah, that would be an expensive hotel room.
We had arrived so quickly and so early that we had hours of sunlight ahead of us and a wide open choice of activities to keep us entertained.
The big one, I think for me, was swimming here at Barney. It was a good 20-25 minute swim. Very peaceful. It's like having your own swimming pool. It's huge. There's nobody around. It takes all the weight off your feet that have been punished for this whole time. Cooling effect on your muscles. Just peaceful as heck. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh, he's so cute. Look at him. What do you think? Too small to eat? He might be a little small.
Think?
What do you think? I think he's a bit small. I say we let him go. See ya, fishy.
This day, more than any other before or after, seemed to slow down, to stretch out, to allow me to meld with nature and become an integrated part of this phenomenal place on Earth. Eventually, the crescent moon signaled the end of our day, and one by one, we retreated into our tent for one last quiet night. I had been waiting for this breakfast. Hot coffee and cold berry granola cereal, a real treat in the backcountry. The orange glow of the sun creeping its way down the mountain face was a call to break down camp for the last time. 4 days of practice made me finally feel like a master at packing my bag. It was considerably smaller, more organized, more balanced than in previous days, and a world away from the messy behemoth that I carried into the wilderness on that first day. I picked up my bag for the last time, it feeling like just another part of my body by now, and began the path home. Skeleton Lake provided us a view to appreciate. A place to rest. and one last opportunity for sport. Before hitting the trail on our final descent. My father died many years ago, but somehow, knowing that he walked these very trails when he was my age, fished these same lakes, smelled these same smells, and took in these same magnificent vistas, that brought him back alive for me, if only for a day. And I felt like he strode alongside me that final morning among the Sierra Nevada mountains. That theme of mortality followed us that morning, as only a mile from our final destination, we passed the body of a gray-haired man. Judging by the AED that rested idly at the feet of the police officers, he most likely died of a heart attack along the same stretch of trail that young athletes ran up at full speed with only a water bottle in hand. It served as a sobering reminder that our time is limited, that our days might be spent working at our computers or handling responsibilities, but that we must make time to venture out and see the world, now, while we are able. Or that we run the risk of missing what's at the top of the pass, beyond the known, the comfortable, the predictably safe. Gradually, we return to the comforts of normal life. The laughter of people, the squeak of the trolley that was to take us back to our car and back to our normal lives.
Hey Will, how mad would you be if I forgot the car keys? Hi car! Remember me?
I'm surprised that our hearts
Ha! Look at that! Yay, we made it! Can't leave you behind, can I?